proportions while covering the Boston Marathon bombing. First, you had the failure of CNN's reporting. It was the first big news outlet to report that an arrest had been made in the bombing case, when in actuality, no arrest had been made. CNN claims in a statement and sent to the Huffington Post that it had 3 credible sources on both local and federal levels, and that's what it based its reporting on. So apparently they are okay with their wrong reporting and stand behind it, I guess. And when Pete Williams at NBC got credit for getting that part of the story right, that no one had been arrested yet, CNN's Howard Kurtz actually made sure to point out that Williams had gotten something wrong too when he reported that a body had been found in the boat where the suspect was hiding. The blame game was happening all over the place, with a New Yorker editor being outraged by the New York Post's front page cover, which printed a picture of 2 innocent people with a headline indicating that they were the bombing suspects. So essentially, you had networks pointing their fingers at each other and saying how terribly wrong their coverage was, like mean little kids on a playground. You also had new media sucking right alongside traditional media outlets. You had websites like Reddit and Gawker doing supposed real-time coverage, when what they were really doing was real-time rumor feeding. You had tons of people on Twitter who like to call themselves journalists, spewing out whatever sounded like news as fast as they could. News websites were very quick to point out what other websites had gotten wrong. Supposed journalists were tweeting viciously at each other. CNN's Anderson Cooper lamented that initial reports so often are wrong. And that's very true. But it's not new. What is new is the frequency and abundance of these initial wrong reports, how quickly they propagate, and how infantile news outlets have become in their real-time news coverage. So what has changed? It comes down to this. Thanks to the speed and reach of the internet, owning a story is incredibly difficult. Having the privilege to be the first to report something and owning it is a prize so hard to win these days that trying to scoop a story has become almost blood sport. News outlets with supposed journalistic integrity are now forced to compete with pretty much anyone who has access to a computer. Today, anyone with a pair of thumbs and a Twitter account is allowed to consider themselves a member of the news media. Everyone is a journo. So apparently legitimate outlets are now willing to risk reporting something wrong if it means they might be the first person to get the story right. The internet hasn't leveled the playing field, it's decimated it into a black smoking hole of information and misinformation alike. In some ways, that's great. It's providing people with infinite sources of news, allowing them to ignore the horrible mainstream media altogether if they so choose. On the other hand, it's created a new kind of crap for people to comb through. So, the lesson here is that maybe we all need to relax a little bit with our growing addiction to real-time coverage. And remember, it might behoove us all to take a second to check our sources before we wreck the story entirely. Tonight, let's talk about that by following me on Twitter at The Resident.